its neighbors reassess the expectations for the commune at Rajneeshpuram. Investigators work overtime sifting evidence. New Rajneesh leaders of the community declare their solidarity for their future in Oregon. And the questions by all observers just don't seem to end. Without their master, can the community survive? What's to be made of Rajneesh for sale signs on property in Portland and the former city of Antelope? Tonight, Top Story questions the Rajneesh leadership. And in our follow-up segment, we will assess the efforts to expand Oregon's bottle bill. The unrest surrounding the Rajneesh community in Oregon continues this week. Criminal allegations last month against Sheila lead to her arrest. And the culmination of a 4-year investigation by the Immigration and Naturalization Service puts Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh behind bars. The Bhagwan packed his bags and left Oregon this week. About this hour last Sunday, 2 private jets left Rajneeshpuram. On board, Bhagwan and 6 of his disciples. They got as far as Charlotte, North Carolina, where charter arrangements for an onward flight to Bermuda were being made. Federal officials and U.S. Customs agents acting on warrants from Oregon were waiting for them. All 7 jailed. A Wasco County grand jury charged the Bhagwan with immigration crimes, charges stemming from a 4-year investigation by the Immigration and Naturalization Service. The charge of unlawful flight from arrest has been dropped. 3 of 6 followers arrested with him in North Carolina are charged with harboring and concealing a fugitive. Sheila was arrested in Germany less than 24 hours later, charged with plotting the murder of Devaraj, the guru's personal physician. He claims Sheila and others tried to poison him. Arrested with Sheila were 2 others named by Devaraj as conspirators in the alleged poison plot. Back at the ranch, followers were unaware their guru had left until they saw the headlines Monday morning. Despite the departure of the Bhagwan, followers continued to work, laugh, and dance. But by midweek, the mood had quieted. According to followers, Bhagwan's jail experience has not made him a saint or a martyr, but jail conditions and his treatment by authorities did raise some protest.
The deterioration in Bhagwan's health was quite noticeable. Really? Unbelievably noticeable. And for the people in the jail that didn't seem to have any concern, I felt that that was really disgusting.
Rumors spread faster than the news. A rumor hotline was set up to set the record straight.
We've expanded the Community Information Center to include a rumor hotline. So if you want to check out any juicy rumors, you can do it that way.
Arrangements were made by commune leaders to show videotapes of newscasts to keep followers informed. Extradition procedures are underway in West Germany to bring Sheila back to the U.S. to stand trial, but it could take months. Questions about Bhagwan's flight have surfaced. Representative Bob Smith asking state and federal authorities to find out who tipped off the Rajneesh that the Bhagwan was to be named in a grand jury indictment.
I've written to Attorney General Meese, as well as the Governor of Oregon, as well as the Attorney General of Oregon, to investigate their own houses to find out and identify the leak and then prosecute those who are responsible. Obviously, we've spent more than 3 years putting together this case against the Bhagwan for very many questions, and the possibility of losing him at the last minute because of a leak in the justice system somewhere is a travesty, and it ought to be corrected, and I demand it be corrected.
Commune leaders say the Bhagwan has been in the media limelight too much recently, and the reason for his departure was a holiday and relaxation.
I was not going to Bermuda. I had no idea where my friends were taking. These things I never take care myself.
State officials are not buying this explanation. At the ranch in eastern Oregon, residents and commune managers are trying to reinforce an environment of business as usual. But the future is laced with as much uncertainty as the present, with the potential of a looming trial, extradition of Sheila and Bhagwan to Portland, unanswered questions about charges of poisoning and murder plots, and the prospects of continuing turmoil. How have these developments affected plans for the Rajneesh community? What will followers do now? Hotel Rajneesh is up for sale. What about the fate of the ranch? What is the commune's financial outlook and its impact on Oregon? Dhyan Johna, the president of Rajneesh Investment Corporation, answers these and other questions up next on Top Story. The mood on the ranch now, with all the developments of the past week, what's the feeling of the people who live there?
Optimism. Basically, they're feeling good. They're feeling good about the commune. They're feeling good about their relationship with their master, Bhagwan. They're glad that they're there. They're horrified at the treatment that he's been receiving. But other than that, they're in a pretty gleeful space right now.
So many of them came to be close to him. The flight of the past week surely raised some questions in their minds about the future.
Yeah, but, you know, Bhagwan's teaching is you just take life a day at a time, and that's what they're doing. And if he wants to leave, and if he's allowed to leave, then I don't think anybody would have any problem with that.
There are a lot of changes in the financial picture of the community in Oregon. In your role as president of the investment corporation, you've chosen to sell the hotel in Portland. Let's first talk about that. Why? What's the problem?
Well, I have yet to see a real reason why we should own a hotel in Portland.
Well, now, the reason in the first place was, as I understand it, to help your followers get from Portland International to the ranch and back and coming and going, especially for your festivals and other reasons. You use it.
I really don't use it that much, and I've never really liked to use it because for me it was always a little inconvenient. If I'm flying into Portland, it's actually easier for me to go directly from the airport to the ranch than to go from the airport into town, then back out of town. It adds an hour just to and fro to my trip to the ranch.
Well, it's basically designed for your own people, though. How was that an investment in the first place?
It escapes me why the investment was deemed to be necessary in the first place. The only thing that would have made it maybe within the realm of possibility was that when we operated the disco,
now closed in Portland,
which is now closed, we had a few more people. But when I first started looking at the hotel after Sheila had left and the transition was on, there were 12 or 15 people living in a hotel with 130
So it's up for
rooms.
sale. You got some buyers?
We've got some buyers. We've got two very interested parties who have, one of which has made an offer which we have countered, and that negotiation is ongoing at the moment.
Now, before he left a week ago, Bhagwan talked about selling properties in Antelope. What do we mean by selling properties in Antelope? I mean, selling back everything that Rajneesh's owned there?
Yes, everything.
Why?
Well, because what he said was, in press conferences and also in discourses, that it was wrong to change the name of the town, that the town belonged to the long-term residents, should be returned to them, and the only landowner there is the company of which I'm the president, Rajneesh Investment Corporation, other than private landowners. So we own 11 houses, 5 lots, and a big hill with a housing development on it called Diogenes Grove. We are prepared to sell all of it. We've got $460,000 in the houses and lots in town, and we have something over $2 million invested in that Diogenes Grove area.
Okay, now that offer to sell all that was publicly made by Bhagwan, what, a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, whenever it was.
Right.
Any buyers? I mean, have people come forward and said, okay, make an offer on these properties?
No, which surprises me, Boyd, because Antelope has been the focus of so much controversy and so much concern within Oregon.
Wouldn't that just be the reason that people in Oregon might not want to invest in Antelope?
Yes, but go back to what people have been saying now since 2 years ago. The town was illegally taken away, the poor people are being brutalized psychologically and this and that. So here's an opportunity that people could say, fine, let's go back, we're going to take it back. We're going to put our money where our mouth is, and the investment corporation is going to make it available. We'll take them up on it. We'll take them out. Nobody's called.
Wouldn't you grant, though, to your critics that so much of that kind of reaction might be based on the premise of a lack of trust in what your plans are as Rajneeshis in Oregon? I mean, Sheila was your leader at one time. Many of you now may disavow her leadership, but, you know, the rest of Oregon looks upon you all as Rajneeshi. Nonetheless, that was an expansionist time. Buy Antelope, get the hotel, have the disco in Portland, all the talk of taking over Wasco County in that business. Now, we hear talk of this element of retreat. But I mean, whom is anyone to believe? I mean, that lack of trust, wouldn't you grant, might cause potential investors in Antelope to say, why invest in that place?
Well,
is that not a plausible explanation?
Yeah, it's a plausible explanation. But I mean, I think there are just as many plausible explanations for our side. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens in Antelope. And at least we are at a point where Oregonians can no longer say that we are holding Antelope at bay. We have made our offer. We are sincere in the offer. We're open to do business with anybody. And what more can we do?
How are potential buyers to know that that the leadership might not change again someday, and there would be a different philosophy about it?
They don't. Nor do I.
Okay. Since the troubles began a few weeks ago concerning Sheila, her departure, the Bhagwan's flight a week ago, what's happened to the numbers at the ranch? Have people left? Have your own followers left? Packed their bags and said, I don't know about the future of this place, I'm going?
The last time I took a count, which was about a week ago, 52 people had left.
Out of?
A couple thousand. And we have had applications from people that used to live there who left because of Sheila, numbering 300-400, and we are beginning to accept those people back. So actually, we're going to be entering a net gain period.
Okay. Your agricultural planning, as I understand it, forecasts a population in the community of some 4,500 at the beginning of 1986. You're under 2,000 now. What are the growth projections for the future now that the presence of leadership is in such turmoil? Does that change any?
Well, I feel like we will be growing and growing substantially. I think that the treatment that Bhagwan has received, the world press is, in essence, a Rajneesh world press right now, will cause people who might not have come immediately to the ranch to come. I'm expecting a big birthday celebration. I'm expecting a lot of people who've been sort of standing on the sidelines because of Sheila and now waiting, well, I think I'm about ready to go back. This harassment that Bhagwan has had will, in essence, force their hand. They'll come. So I feel like we're going to enter a very dramatic growth phase. It's just that my own feeling as the president of the investment corporation is that we should be addressing our concern for growth on the ranch and not in Portland and not in Antelope. I don't think we have any business being in those two cities.
To what extent are these property sales premised on your need for money? Financial crunch?
We actually are not in a financial crunch within the investment corporation or within any of the other entities. But let's face it.
Can you tell us the size of your investments? I mean, what are we talking about?
Well, the aggregate size of the business and community at Rajneeshpuram has an asset base of $80 million. We're talking about book value now. I'll talk a minute about what I think it's actually worth. And liabilities of about $35 million for a retained earnings or valuation, you might say, of $45 million on the books. I actually think that $45 million has a true market value of $300 million. And we have significant mineral deposits, oil deposits on the ranch, which we've never talked about. We never had any interest in.
You want to talk about that now? Significant oil deposits. How do you know?
Not really. We know.
You've drilled.
We have never drilled, no. But we know from geologic formations that we're sitting on a bonanza in natural resources.
Tell me more about that. I mean, what? Rock?
I really can't tell you much more about it at this time.
How much do you know that you're not telling us? I mean, is it because you don't know, or it's just a mineral rights that go with any property?
Because our findings are preliminary to the extent that I'm not comfortable saying something that I couldn't very scientifically substantiate to
Has there been recent tests that have shown you natural gas deposits, the precursor of oil? Have you discovered
We're in
that?
a very preliminary phase, let me put it that way, of proving up what we've got on the ranch. We have no interest in mining, and if Bhagwan comes back and lives in the commune, we'll never have any interest in it.
Are these recent tests?
But if we were to sell it, now we would have to consider proving up those reserves and putting a price on those reserves.
You'd have to prove they were there in order to sell it.
Which we're prepared to do.
This is the first I've heard you talk about selling the ranch. Is that what you're talking about?
If Bhagwan is allowed to voluntarily depart from this country, which is one of the possibilities, And if he goes somewhere, and if he invites us to come, I feel like most community members would go.
Leave en masse.
Well, I don't think they would leave en masse in the sense of leaving in a single group, but in small groups and large groups over a period of time, they would end up with Bhagwan wherever he is in the world.
Now, I've heard that comment from you before this, in the course of this past week. Now, I mean, can we see that as some method of negotiating a political end to what is otherwise a criminal issue in the eyes of the courts?
No, and that issue's come up before for me. I feel like the government has an agenda which they've had in place for a period of years. Bhagwan's application for a visa is 4 years old. The normal time it takes to get a visa for anybody else is 3 days maximum. So they've been working within their bureaucratic labyrinth for a long time. They know what they want. Whatever I say isn't going to affect it.
Where does Bhagwan want to go? Does he want to leave?
I don't know. I don't know.
How about the Rajneeshis at Rajneeshpuram? What are their aspirations for him?
The aspirations...
I mean, he's talked about a community of 100,000 people at Rajneeshpuram.
Right.
And I can only guess that the legal problems of the past week now have provoked some new thinking about the location of the, of the center of the faith, i.e. someplace else on the planet.
Well, I can't speak for what he's thinking. I do know that the community at Rajneeshpuram has been the subject of harassment from every corner of Oregon and from many corners of the United States political structure since its inception. And, I mean, I think it is a time to ask some very fundamental questions as to how long we would be willing to put up with this kind of pressure versus going somewhere else in the world where we might be welcomed and where all kinds of economic considerations and gains and advantages could be made available.
Have you identified those places? Where are
they?
Well,
we know places.
Well, where are they?
Well, one of the potential opportunities is Switzerland, which is a haven for religious figures and has been for a long, long time. It's basically apolitical, unlike the United States. And
does the foundation own property in Switzerland?
No.
Are you looking at property in Switzerland?
No. We're not going to do anything until we know what happens to Bhagwan.
You have indicated also that there's another scenario, and that's an expansionist one here in Oregon.
Right.
How does that fit into the plan?
Well, it is always possible that Oregon could somehow, at some point, open its arms to Bhagwan. It could say, look, if these people will go and stay on the ranch and do their thing and get out of Portland and get out of Antelope, we think it'd be great to have them here. They are, after all, an exciting group of people. And if that were to happen, I think that we might end up with a city of 100,000 people and a major tourist center and airports and 747.
What's your candid expectation?
My candid expectation is that Bhagwan will be released of all charges. He is innocent of all charges against him. And beyond that, I really can't say.
We have some clue, I guess, from the court system that may take, months into next year before we know all those answers.
It could very well take...
So what happens to the ranch between now and then?
It's business as usual. I'm anticipating no fall off in people coming. If anything, I think there'd be a gain. We're financially strong, and we have connections with communes all over the world. If I needed anything, all I have to do is pick up the phone and say, gee, we need, and it would be forthcoming.
Your festivals have been the source for a lot of revenue. The December festival at Bhagwan's birthday. How do you expect that to go this year? Are you still making plans for that?
We are still making plans for that, and...
How many people do you expect?
Well, I would hope to have over 10,000 at the summer festival, but...
At the summer festival?
At the summer festival.
But the December birthday
The
festival.
December festival, I'd like to see between 3,000 and 4,000 come, which would be more than has ever come before for a December festival.
Thank you very much for being with us
You're
today
welcome,
on Top
Boyd.
Story. We appreciate it.